The linoleum floors of St. Mercy's pediatric wing squeak under my sneakers. It's a sound I know better than my own heartbeat. It's the sound of 5 in the afternoon, the end of a 10-hour shift, and the heavy sigh of New York City breathing outside our filtered windows. My name is Emma Collins. I am 31 years old. Most days, I'm just a nurse. I check vitals, I administer meds, I hold small hands during scary procedures, and I lie. I tell parents their child has a 90% chance when I know, statistically, it's closer to 50. I tell kids the shot won't hurt, just a little pinch. My life is built on these small, necessary kindnesses. This city, though it isn't kind, New York is a two-faced animal. By day, it's all glass towers on the Upper East Side and tourists in Times Square. By night, it's the whisper of sirens, the shadow trade that happens in alleys, the kind of darkness that swallowed my father whole 10 years ago. I live on the real side of the city, in a 4th-floor walk-up with my roommate, Katie, who thinks my biggest problem is that I don't date enough. I don't tell her that I work double shifts, scraping together every dollar, not for myself, but for my little sister's tuition down in Virginia. I don't tell her that I avoid crowds, that I always sit with my back to the wall in diners, or that the faint silvery line of a scar under my collarbone aches when the humidity gets too high. That scar is 10 years old, a permanent reminder of the night I survived, the night my father, a cop, didn't. I was just a visitor in that world of violence, just collateral damage, but it left its brand on me. Ever since, I've had one rule stay away from trouble. Keep my head down. Just be the nurse in the squeaky shoes. Today, trouble found me. I was heading to the cafeteria for a stale coffee before catching the subway. The place was emptying out, the dinner rush not yet started. And I saw her. She was tiny, maybe 6 years old, standing by the vending machines as if she'd been placed there by mistake. She wasn't crying. Not loudly, anyway. She was just lost. Her dress was dark velvet, the kind of material that costs more than my monthly rent, and her black hair was pulled back in a ribbon. She didn't look sick. She looked expensive. My pediatric training kicked in before my common sense. I knelt, keeping my voice low. "Hey, sweetie, are you looking for someone?" She turned, and her eyes were enormous, dark, and terrified. She clutched a small, worn teddy bear to her chest. She didn't speak. "My name is Emma. I'm a nurse here." I pointed to the cartoon whale on my scrubs. "See, I help people. Are you lost?" She gave a small, jerky nod. "Okay, we can fix that." I smiled, the easy, professional one. "What's your name?" "Sophia," she whispered. "That's a beautiful name. Sophia. Can you tell me your mommy or daddy's name? We can call them up." She shook her head, her lip trembling. "I can't find him. He told me to wait." I waited. A chill I couldn't explain crept up my spine. This wasn't a kid who wandered away from the gift shop. "Okay, Sophia, let's go to the nurse's station on my floor. It's safe, and we have stickers. How about that?" She seemed to consider this. Then, slowly, she reached out one small hand. I took it. Her skin was cold. As I stood up, helping her, my eyes caught it. Hanging around her neck, against the dark velvet of her dress, was a necklace. It was heavy, shining gold under the fluorescent lights. It wasn't a locket. It wasn't a cross. It was a falcon. My breath hitched. The blood in my veins turned to ice. It wasn't just a falcon, it was the falcon. Wings spread wide, talons out, its profile sharp and predatory. The world tilted. I wasn't in the St. Mercy cafeteria anymore. I was 21 again, hiding behind a sodden dumpster in a rain-soaked alley. I smelled gunpowder and wet pavement. I saw the flash of that exact same symbol. inked in black, on the thick wrist of the man who stood over my father, the man who looked at me, the silent witness, before turning and walking away into the darkness. 10 years. 10 years I had spent trying to forget that image, the symbol of the organization that had executed my father, and it was hanging around the neck of a 6-year-old child. Nurse? Sophia's voice was a pinprick, pulling me back. I couldn't breathe. I was holding the hand of a child who belonged to them, to the monsters. My first instinct, the one that screamed in my survivor's brain, was to let go, to run. But I was still a nurse, and she was just a little girl. It's okay, Sophia. We'll find him. My voice was a stranger's. Before I could take a single step, the cafeteria doors swished open. It wasn't a doctor. It wasn't a worried parent. It was 2 men. They were huge, both wearing immaculate black suits that looked wrong in the sterile environment of a hospital. They wore earpieces. Their eyes weren't searching. They were scanning, methodically, like predators. My hand tightened on Sophia's. I instinctively pulled her half behind my legs. One of the men saw us. He didn't smile. He didn't look relieved. He just nodded to the other man and started walking toward us. His hand was inside his jacket. This is it. This is how it ends. I went looking for coffee and stumbled into the underworld. My scar throbbed, a sharp, hot pain. "Miss," the man said. His voice was gravel. "Step away from the child." I froze. My legs wouldn't move. I was the nurse. I was the adult. But I was also the 21-year-old girl in the alley again. Sophia, who had been silent, did the one thing I never could have predicted. She burrowed her face into the fabric of my scrubs, wrapped both arms around my leg, and yelled the one word that sealed my fate. "Mommy!" The man stopped. He looked confused, his professional menace faltering for just 1 second. He looked from me to the girl clinging to my leg, then back to me. I wanted to scream. I am not her mother. I am just a nurse. I am nobody. The other man spoke into his wrist. "We have her. Cafeteria. But there's a complication." A complication. That was me. The air grew heavy, charged with a new tension. The 2 suits looked past me, toward the entrance. They straightened, their posture shifting from predatory to deferential. A 3rd man walked in. He wasn't big like the others. He didn't need to be. The suit he wore was tailored, a dark charcoal gray, and it probably cost more than my sister's first year of tuition. He moved with a lethal, fluid grace, and the entire cafeteria, the clatter of trays, the hum of the coolers seemed to fall silent around him. He was handsome, in the way a panther is handsome. Sharp jaw, dark hair, and eyes that were utterly, terrifyingly empty. The papers called him Matteo Romano. The whispers in the city called him the Don of the East Coast, the head of the Romano family, the man who inherited the falcon symbol. He was the man whose organization killed my father. His gaze locked on Sophia first, a flicker of something relief, maybe, but it was too cold to be simple relief crossed his face. Then his eyes moved to me. He saw the nurse scrubs. He saw the terror I was desperately trying to hide. He saw his daughter clinging to my leg as if I were her only anchor in the world. He didn't speak. He didn't have to. We just stared. And in that silence, I knew. He wasn't just a gangster. He was the man who owned the symbol that had haunted my nights for 10 years. I was staring at the man responsible for my father's death, and I was holding his daughter's hand. Matteo Romano's eyes held mine for what felt like an eternity. In that look, I saw no recognition, just assessment. He was a man analyzing a problem. I was the problem. "Sophia," he said. His voice was quiet, a low baritone that cut through the cafeteria's hum. It held absolute authority. The little girl clinging to my leg, the one who had called me Mommy, only burrowed deeper, her small fingers twisting into the fabric of my scrubs. "No," she whimpered. One of the large men in suits stepped forward. "Sir, we'll take her." "You will not," Romano said, his gaze never leaving me. He took a slow step closer. He wasn't looking at me with anger, or even annoyance. He was looking at me like I was a puzzle he was about to solve. "Miss, you are a nurse here." I managed a nod, my throat tight as a drum. Emma Collins. I'm in the pediatric wing." "Miss Collins." He said my name as if testing its weight. "My daughter seems to have formed an attachment. She will not come with my men. She will, however, come with you." It was not a question. It was a diagnosis. "Sir, I can't. My shift is over. You have to come with us." He cut me off, the politeness in his tone so thin it was transparent. "My daughter has been through an ordeal. She is agitated. You are, for whatever reason, her comfort. You will come to my home until she is settled. My driver will compensate you for your time." I looked at the two suits. I looked at the man whose face was synonymous with organized crime on the East Coast. And I looked at the little girl with the falcon necklace, the symbol of my deepest trauma. Saying no was not an option. Saying no meant finding out what happened to people who said no to Matteo Romano. "Just until she's calm," I whispered. "Just until she's calm," he agreed. The ride was silent. I sat in the back of a black Escalade that was more like a moving vault. It smelled of new leather and faint, expensive cologne. Sophia was strapped into a car seat next to me, her small hand having crept over to hold my index finger. She hadn't let go since the cafeteria. Matteo Romano sat in the front passenger seat, a silent, imposing silhouette. He made 2 calls, his voice too low to understand, but the words were sharp, precise. We didn't drive to a brownstone. We drove through the city, then over a bridge, to a part of Long Island I had only ever seen in magazines. The gates were 20 feet high, wrought iron backed by solid steel, bearing the same falcon crest. They opened silently for us. The Romano mansion wasn't a house. It was a fortress. A stone and glass palace that loomed against the setting sun, surrounded by acres of manicured lawn that felt more like a sterile perimeter. Men in dark suits stood at the corners of the property. This was a world that operated on its own rules. Inside, it was silent. Marble floors. Ceilings so high they seemed to vanish, and art on the walls that probably belonged in a museum. A woman in a crisp housekeeper's uniform appeared, took one look at Sophia clinging to me, and then looked at Matteo. "She will be staying in the guest wing, with Miss Collins," Matteo ordered. Sir, the housekeeper looked surprised. "She will not let the nurse go. Get Miss Collins whatever she needs, and have Dr. Alessi here in 1 hour." He loosened his tie, his attention finally fully on his daughter. "Sophia." He knelt, trying to catch her eye. "You are home. You are safe. You can let go of the nurse now." Sophia just shook her head, her face pale. He sighed, a rare flicker of frustration. "Miss Collins, what is your rate?" "I'm a salaried nurse. I don't—" "We'll pay you $500 for the night," he stated. "Stay. Get her to sleep. The doctor will check her. In the morning, you can leave." I stayed. What choice did I have that night? I learned that Sophia Romano, 6 years old, was born in captivity. Her mother, a woman from a rival family, had been taken. She died during the birth. Sophia had been in the world for 2 days before Matteo found her. She was a child born from violence, her entire life spent inside these walls, her only parent a man who ruled an empire. I stayed that night, and the next day. Sophia would not eat unless I was there. She woke up screaming from nightmares unless I was sitting in the chair by her bed. On the third morning, Matteo Romano found me in the kitchen. I was drinking coffee that was probably $50 a pound, feeling like a ghost in my borrowed silk pajamas. "She trusts you," he said, standing in the doorway. He wasn't wearing a suit, just dark pants and a gray cashmere sweater. It made him look younger, but no less dangerous. "She's a sweet kid. She's just scared." "She is always scared. She has reason to be." He paused. "My offer of $500 a night is insulting. I apologize. I would like to make a formal one. I want you to be her private caretaker for a few weeks, just until this situation is resolved." My mind screamed, "Run! Take the money you've earned and run. Forget the necklace. Forget him." But I looked at the falcon charm, which I had unfastened from Sophia's neck while she slept. It was sitting on the granite countertop, glinting under the light. The symbol of the man who shot my father. I was inside. I was in the lion's den. This was the only chance I would ever get to understand why. "I have a job," I said, my voice shaking slightly. "We will compensate St. Mercy for your absence. We will triple your salary. Name your price. My daughter needs you." I swallowed my fear. I swallowed my hatred. And I thought about my sister's tuition. That was my out, my excuse. "I need money. For my sister's school." "Done," he said, not even asking the amount. And just like that, I was an employee of the Romano family. The next 2 weeks were a blur. I lived in a world where the law was Matteo Romano's word. Loyalty was the only currency. I saw men come and go, all of them treating Matteo with a mixture of terror and reverence. One of them was different. His name was Vincent Morelli. He was older than Matteo, with silvering hair and a smile that never reached his eyes. He was the underboss. And he seemed to be the only one who wasn't afraid of Matteo. "A nurse," he said to me one afternoon in the hall, his voice smooth. "You're a brave girl sticking around here. This isn't a place for the faint of heart." "I'm just here for Sophia," I said, keeping my eyes down. "Of course you are," he chuckled. It made my skin crawl. I was trying to keep my distance, to be invisible, but I saw things. I saw the human side in Matteo. I saw him sitting with Sophia, patiently trying to read her a story, his voice stumbling over the words in the cartoon book. I saw him watch her sleep, his face a mask of such profound, aching love it startled me. One night, I couldn't sleep. I was heading to the kitchen when I heard voices from his study, raised voices. One was Matteo, the other was Vincent. Cannot expand that line. "Vincent, I told you, it's off the table." "It's money. Matteo, a 10% increase on all routes. The old ways are dying." "I don't care. We do not deal in people. We do not move cargo that breathes. My father allowed it. I do not shut it down." "Or what you'll shut me down, be careful. Boss, you're sounding soft." There was a heavy silence. Then, the sound of glass shattering. "Get out!" Matteo's voice was a low growl. "And if I hear one more whisper about that human trafficking route, you'll be swimming with the fishes. We are done." I froze. Human trafficking. Vincent was running it, and Matteo was trying to stop it. The man responsible for my father's death, the head of the mafia, had a moral line. It was a warped, twisted, criminal line, but it was there. The next day, I had to get away. I told Matteo I needed to go to my apartment, to get more clothes, to check my mail. He hesitated, but Sophia was having a good day. He agreed. "Rick will drive you," he said, motioning to one of the suits. "You have 2 hours." The garage beneath my building was damp and smelled of exhaust. Rick, the driver, stood by the Escalade while I walked to the trunk to get my empty suitcase. It happened fast. A hand clamped over my mouth from behind. An arm, strong as steel, wrapped around my waist, lifting me off my feet. I saw the glint of a knife. I tried to scream, but the sound was smothered. I kicked, but he was too strong. This wasn't a mugging. This was a professional grab. Rick was shouting, pulling his weapon, but another man appeared from behind a concrete pillar and engaged him. I was being dragged toward a black sedan. This was it. I was going to disappear. Suddenly, the pressure was gone. The hand vanished from my mouth. I fell to the pavement, scraping my knees. I looked up, gasping. Matteo Romano was there. He hadn't been in the car. He must have followed us. He wasn't holding a gun. He was fighting the man who had grabbed me, and it wasn't a fight. It was a deconstruction. It was brutal, fast, and terrifyingly efficient. The sound of a body hitting the concrete was final. The man didn't get up. Matteo stood over him, breathing hard, not from effort, from rage. He turned to me, his dark eyes blazing. He grabbed my arm, yanking me to my feet. His fingers were like a vice. "Are you hurt?" he demanded. "Know I how?" "They know," he snarled, his face inches from mine. He wasn't looking at me like an employer. He was looking at me like a target. "Know what I'm just a nurse?" "No," he said, his voice a raw whisper of fury. "You're not. You're the witness. The girl who got away from the alley 10 years ago. Someone knows who you are. Emma. And they want you gone." He didn't shove me. He didn't yell. The attack in the garage had changed the air between us, chilling it from suspicion to certainty. He simply walked me back into the silent, marble-floored fortress, his grip firm on my upper arm, his man Rick trailing us, looking pale. He didn't take me to the guest wing. He marched me straight to his study, the one where I'd overheard him arguing with Vincent. He closed the heavy oak doors, and the sound of the tumblers clicking into place was the loudest sound in the world. I was locked in. "Sit," he commanded. I sat on a hard-backed leather chair facing his massive desk. He didn't sit. He stood by the window, the faint lights of the city glittering across the water, illuminating his profile. He was silent for a full minute. 2 minutes. The quiet was worse than shouting. "I had my people look into you," he finally said, his voice terrifyingly calm. "After the incident at the hospital, I do not like complications." He turned. In his hand, he held a thin file. He tossed it onto the desk. It slid across the polished wood and stopped inches from my hands. "I knew you were a pediatric nurse," he continued. "I knew you lived in Queens. I knew you were paying for your sister's tuition, all manageable facts. But after the garage, I dug deeper, into the why. Why would someone want a nurse from St. Mercy to disappear?" My heart was hammering against my ribs so hard I thought he could see it. "You're not just Emma Collins," he said, stepping closer. His eyes were flat, devoid of all the warmth I'd seen him show his daughter. This was the dawn. "You're Emma Rose Collins, daughter of Detective Thomas Collins." I flinched. The name felt like a bruise. My father's organization kept extensive files. Miss Collins. Detective Collins was an undercover officer. He spent 2 years posing as a driver for my uncle. He ate at my father's table, and all the while, he was a rat, feeding information to the feds. His voice dropped to a whisper, thick with a decade of cold fury. He was a traitor. He was responsible for my uncle's arrest and the loss of nearly 20% of our legitimate holdings. And 10 years ago, he was silenced for it. He leaned down, his hands flat on the desk, caging me in. So, I have to ask myself, was it coincidence? You finding my daughter? Or was this a 10-year plan? revenge. Are you here to finish what your father started? The accusation hung in the air, suffocating me. No, I whispered, tears stinging my eyes. I swear, I didn't know who she was. She was a lost little girl. A lost little girl wearing this, he said, touching the falcon charm he wore under his own shirt, identical to Sophia's. You, the only witness who saw the man who took out your father, a man bearing the falcon tattoo, you just happened to find my daughter, wearing the same symbol. I didn't make the connection until I saw it. I cried. I just wanted to forget that night. He stared at me, searching my face, his internal scales weighing my terror against his paranoia. The door creaked. We both froze. In the gap, illuminated by the hall light, stood Sophia. She was dragging her bear, her hair a mess from sleep. "Why are you shouting?" she mumbled. Matteo straightened instantly, the mask of the father slamming back into place. "Sophia, cara mia, go back to bed. The adults are talking." She looked at him, her eyes wide. Then she looked at me. She saw the tears on my cheeks. She saw the file on the desk. She saw the way I was rigid with fear. She walked past her father. She didn't go to him. She came straight to me. She climbed into my lap, skinny arms and legs, and wrapped her arms around my neck. She glared at Matteo over my shoulder. "You're being mean," she accused him. Matteo looked stunned. The rage in his eyes faltered, replaced by a profound confusion. "Sophia, get off the nurse. This is not your business." "No," she yelled, her voice shocking in the quiet room. "You made her cry. She's my mommy, and you're being a monster." The word hit him like a bullet. Monster. He flinched, his jaw tightening. He looked at me, the daughter of his enemy, being fiercely protected by his own child. The old hatred was still there, a bitter poison, but it was now at war with the undeniable trust his daughter had placed in me. He couldn't be the Don and the father in the same moment. He had to choose. He ran a hand over his face, a gesture of complete exhaustion. He closed the file. "Take her to bed, Emma." The unspoken words hung in the air. This is not over. But it was different. After that night, I wasn't just the caretaker. I was a known quantity, a threat he couldn't neutralize. The security outside my door doubled. I was a prisoner, but a protected one. The attack in the garage had set something else in motion. Matteo was angry, yes, but his anger also seemed directed outward. I noticed him watching Vincent Morelli. The silver-haired underboss still smiled, but there was a new tension when he and Matteo were in the same room. I started to listen. I wasn't trying to survive anymore. I was trying to understand. A few days later, I was in the library, supposedly finding a new book for Sophia, when Matteo had a meeting in the adjoining sunroom. He was speaking with an older man, his consigliere, or advisor. They were speaking Italian, but I'd picked up enough. "Vincent is pushing the roots again," the old man said. "He will stop," Matteo replied. "He won't. And Matteo, the attack on the nurse, it was clumsy. It was his man. He's nervous." "Nervous about what?" "Her," the old man said. "Don't you see? 10 years ago, your father didn't give the order to take out the cop. Not directly. He told Vincent to handle the rat. Vincent took it upon himself to make it permanent. It was his move to prove his loyalty. But he was sloppy. He left a witness. The girl. Emma." My blood turned to ice. I pressed my back against the bookshelf, my hands shaking. Matteo didn't order it. His father had given a vague directive, and Vincent, the man who made my skin crawl, had been the architect of my father's death. The attack in the garage wasn't Matteo trying to silence me. It was Vincent trying to clean up his own decade-old mistake. I looked at the falcon necklace I still kept in my pocket. All this time, I had pointed my hatred at one man when the real monster was the one smiling at me in the hallways. This changed everything. The next day, I found Matteo in the garden. He was watching Sophia try to catch butterflies. "She's a target now, isn't she?" I said, stepping beside him. He didn't look at me. "Yes, because of me. Because Vincent knows you won't get rid of me, so he thinks I'm your weakness." He finally turned, his gaze sharp. "He doesn't think you're my weakness. He knows she is. He thinks he can use her to control me, to force my hand on the trafficking routes, to take over." We stood there, two enemies, bound by the one person we both needed to protect. "I need your help," he said, the words costing him. "You're the only one she trusts. I need you to keep her close. Do not let her out of your sight. Not for 1 second." A strange, reluctant partnership was formed. I still hated what he represented. I still despised the organization that had orphaned me. But I was beginning to see the man inside. The man who was desperately trying to keep his daughter from being consumed by the darkness he had inherited. I found myself watching him, the way he would correct Sophia's posture, a holdover from his own rigid upbringing, the way he would listen, truly listen. When she told him a rambling story about a cartoon, he was a man drowning, holding his child above the water, and I was somehow in that water with him. Then came the storm. It hit on a Thursday night, a violent nor'easter that threw the Atlantic against the shore. The wind screamed, and the rain felt like pebbles against the bulletproof glass. The entire fortress felt like it was under siege. Sophia, naturally, was terrified. "It's just the wind, sweetie," I murmured, sitting on her bed. I had already given her a warm milk. It was almost 10 o'clock. "The monster is coming," she whispered, hiding under her thick duvet. "No monsters. I'm right here." Matteo was in his study, on a conference call. The storm was playing hell with his security systems. The lights flickered, once, twice. Then the room went black, utter, suffocating darkness. "Emma." Sophia's voice was a tiny, terrified squeak. "I'm right here, don't move. The generator will kick on in just..." The emergency lights buzzed to life, casting the room in a weak yellow glow. But the wind was louder. I looked toward the balcony. The heavy door, the one I knew was always locked, was wide open. The white curtains were flying wildly into the room, soaked with rain. A cold, primal dread seized me. "Sophia." I ripped the duvet back. The bed was empty. "Sophia." I screamed his name, Matteo. I ran to the balcony, the rain and wind hitting me like a physical blow. I looked down. A man, dressed in black tactical gear, was halfway down the trellis on the side of the house. He had Sophia slung over his shoulder. She wasn't fighting. She was limp. "No," I shrieked. The man paused. He looked up. Lightning flashed, a brilliant, terrifying white, and it illuminated his face. I didn't know him, but my eyes were drawn to his neck. He was wearing a necklace. It was the falcon, the same heavy gold falcon. I ran from the room, sliding on the marble floor, screaming. Matteo burst from his study, his face white. What is it?" "She's gone, the balcony." A man, he took her. He didn't ask questions. He was already moving, grabbing a weapon from a concealed drawer. "The man," I gasped, grabbing his arm. "He was wearing one. The necklace. The falcon." Matteo froze. His blood seemed to drain from his face. He looked at me, his eyes wide with a new, raw terror I had never seen in him. "The Falcone Dorado," he whispered. "The golden falcon." "What?" "It's not just the family symbol," he growled, grabbing my shoulders. It's them, the internal enforcers, the assassins. They answer to no one but the true head of the family. He finally understood. Vincent. He didn't just hire a thug. He activated the old guard. He's not trying to scare me. He's making his move for control. He shoved me behind him, his voice dropping to a lethal promise. They won't just hold her for ransom. They'll erase her to prove a point. He slammed his fist into the wall, a crack spidering through the plaster. I swear on my daughter's life, he snarled, his eyes meeting mine. I will not let that falcon live to see the sunrise. There was no time for shock. The storm outside was chaos, but inside, Matteo Romano had become the eye of it. The fury I'd seen in the study was gone, replaced by a terrifying, cold vacuum. He was no longer a father. He was a Don. They're not using our network, he said, already moving toward the security panel by the door. His men, the ones in suits, were scrambling, their faces pale. Vincent has his own, his old frequencies. He's cocky. He thinks I've forgotten. He grabbed a set of keys from a drawer and my arm in the same motion. You're coming with me. What? I can't. I need to call the police. He laughed, a harsh, dry sound. The police. They're his. He's been paying them for 20 years. You're the only person on this property I know isn't on his payroll. You saw the man. You're my witness. We were in the Escalade, the one I'd been attacked in, just the two of us. The storm was so bad the windshield wipers couldn't keep up. He was driving, one hand on the wheel, the other on a specialized laptop mounted to the dash. Where are we going? I yelled over the wind. His bolt hole, a warehouse in Red Hook he used to run his private business. Before I shut him down, he drove like a madman, the massive truck sliding on the wet pavement. My nurse's brain was screaming about statistics, about hydroplaning, about survival. But the man next to me didn't seem to believe in statistics. He only believed in will. We screeched to a halt in front of a derelict brick building. The sign was faded, something about maritime imports. The lock on the door was new. Matteo shot it. The sound was deafening in the narrow alley. He kicked the door open and shoved me behind him. The place was damp, smelling of the harbor and old cigars. It was an office, but it looked like it hadn't been used in years. Dust covered everything. He's not here, I whispered, my heart sinking. We're too late. He was here, Matteo said, touching a high-tech radio console on a desk. It was clean. This is his command center. He's running the operation from here. Matteo wasn't looking for Sophia. He was looking for leverage. He crossed the room to an old oil-painted seascape, tore it from the wall, and revealed a safe. He spun the dial with a confidence that chilled me. He knew the combination. The heavy door swung open. Inside was not what I expected, not just cash. It was full of paper, old yellowing ledgers and files. His insurance policy, Matteo muttered, pulling them out. Everything he ever did, everything my father, everything he hid. He was scanning the labels, looking for something specific, but my eyes found it first, a thin, manila folder at the bottom of the stack. The label read Collins, T. My breath caught. I grabbed it. He looked at me, his face grim, and nodded. Go ahead. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely open the clasp. It was full of surveillance photos. My father, getting into his car, talking to a man I didn't recognize. But it wasn't the photos. It was the notes. They weren't transcripts of him talking to the feds. They were transcripts of him talking to Vincent. I read the words, my world tilting on its axis. My father wasn't betraying the Romano family. He had discovered Vincent's side operation, the human trafficking ring, the one Matteo had been arguing about. My father was trying to stop him. He was feeding information to Matteo's father, trying to help him root out the cancer in his own organization, trying to save those children. He wasn't a rat, he was a hero. The papers slipped from my fingers. I fell to my knees on the dusty floor. 10 years. 10 years of shame. 10 years of believing my father was a dirty cop who got what he deserved. It was all a lie. He was trying to help. I sobbed, the words ripping from my chest. He wasn't. No. Mateo's voice was hollow. He was standing over me, his face a mask of stone. He wasn't. He had seen it. He knew. Vincent built the case against him, Mateo said, his voice flat, devoid of emotion. He brought the evidence to me. Photos of your father talking to his FBI handler. He said your father was turning, that he was going to bring us all down. He said your father was the reason my own father was sick with worry. He looked away, toward the rain-lashed window. I was 25. I had just taken the chair. I was arrogant. I was stupid. And I wanted to prove I was strong enough to protect my family. I looked up, the tears cold on my face. What are you saying? Vincent asked for the order, to clean up the mess, to silence the rat. He met my gaze, and I saw the truth that had been hiding in the shadows of his eyes for weeks. I believed the lie, he whispered. I didn't question it. I didn't look deeper. I gave the order. Emma. Vincent he just pulled the trigger. The air left my lungs. The man I had been living with, the man whose child I had come to care for, the man I had started to see as human. He was the man who gave the order. You. I breathed, scrambling to my feet. I hit him, my fists against his chest, a weak, pathetic drumming. You killed him. You monster. Emma. Get away from me. I shoved him, hard, and ran. I ran out of the office, out into the screaming wind and the driving rain. I ran until my lungs burned and the grief and rage and betrayal swamped me. I collapsed against a chain-link fence, the cold metal biting into my skin. He was dead. My father was dead because of a lie, and the man who believed it was. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text. I fumbled it open, an unknown number. It was a video file. I clicked it. My blood turned to ice. It was Sophia. She was in a dark space, tied to a wooden chair. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with terror. She wasn't crying. She was just staring at the camera. Then Vincent's voice, smooth and venomous. You see, Emma family disappoints. Now, send your boss a message. Pier 12, Red Hook. He comes alone. He gives me the family, or the girl pays for the sins of the father. He has 1 hour. The video ended. Rage, a new kind of rage. It wasn't hot. It was Arctic. It burned away the grief. I ran back. The Escalade was still there. The driver's door was open. Mateo was standing in the rain, loading a heavy-caliber rifle. The trunk was open, revealing an arsenal that could start a small war. He was a one-man rescue. He sent me a video, I said, my voice as flat as his. He didn't look up. Get out of here. Emma, this is over for you. Go. Disappear. You're free. Free. He has your daughter. He sent the video to me. He wants me to watch you fail. I won't fail. You will. You'll go in there, all bullets and rage, and he'll kill you, and she'll be alone. Or worse. He finally looked at me, his eyes black pits of fury. Then stay out of my way. I walked up to him, close enough to feel the heat coming off him. I'm going with you. Don't be stupid. You'll be killed. I just found out my father died a hero, I said, my voice shaking but hard. He died trying to save children from that animal. I already lost my father because of your family's lies and Vincent's greed. I am not going to let another child lose hers because of this." He stared at me for a long, hard second. He saw the same iron will in me that he possessed. He didn't have time to argue. He reached into the trunk and threw a heavy Kevlar vest at me. "Put it on. Stay behind me. And you do exactly what I say, or I will put you down myself." Pier 12 was a graveyard of rusting shipping containers. The storm made it impossible to see more than 10 feet. The wind howled, covering our footsteps. Mateo moved like a shadow. I was just trying to keep up, my heart trying to escape my chest. I was a nurse. I held hands. I gave shots. I was not supposed to be here. A flash of light from a catwalk above, a crack. Mateo grabbed me, throwing us both behind a stack of metal barrels. The bullets sparked where we had been. "Sniper," he yelled. "He's up high. We have to move. Now." The air exploded. It wasn't a fight. It was chaos. Gunfire erupted from 3, maybe 4 different directions. They had been waiting. Mateo didn't hesitate. He returned fire, his weapon roaring, forcing them to take cover. He was moving, always moving, pulling me with him. "The main warehouse, she'll be in there." We ran across an open patch of concrete. I could hear the bullets pinging off the containers around us. We reached a sliding metal door. Mateo kicked it open. "Inside, go find her." I stumbled in. He turned, firing back into the darkness to cover our entry. I heard a sound, not a roar, but a short, sharp crack. I heard Mateo grunt, a deep, agonizing sound that was ripped away by the wind. He stumbled in after me, sliding the heavy door shut. The world went blessedly silent, save for the wind. He leaned against the wall and slid down, his hand pressed hard against his side. "Mateo." He looked down. He pulled his hand away, even in the dim light. I could see it. The blood, so much blood. "Vest didn't," he gasped. "Low, it's low." My nurse's training took over. I ripped his jacket open. The vest was pristine. The shot had gone under it, into his abdomen. He was bleeding out, fast. "Mommy!" The voice was a whisper, carried on the wind. I looked up, across the vast, cavernous warehouse, maybe 50 yards away. Sophia. She was tied to a piling near the water. I looked down. Mateo was gasping, his eyes losing focus. He was going into shock. He had maybe 2 minutes. He was the man who killed my father. He was the man who was bleeding to death at my feet. His daughter was 50 yards away. And I knew. I just knew. Vincent was in the shadows, watching. I was a nurse. My hands were shaking, wanting to apply pressure, to save the life in front of me. I was the only one who could save the child. I had to choose, go. The word was a gasp from Mateo, a bubble of blood at the corner of his mouth. "Get Figlia mia, my daughter." He was choosing, he was dying, and he was choosing her. The man who had ordered my father's execution was telling me to save his child. The nurse in me screamed, "Apply pressure, find the exit wound, stop the bleeding." But the woman, the one who had held that 6-year-old's hand in the cafeteria, knew the choice was an illusion. I was never going to save him, not first. "Press on it," I commanded, tearing my own jacket off and shoving it into his hand. "Press hard." His grip was weak. He nodded, his face a sheet of gray-white. I stood up. My body was a single, ringing bell. I felt the gaze of Vincent Morelli in the shadows. I felt the crosshairs of the sniper I knew was still out there. I was a target. Illuminated by the flashing red and blue lights of the police cars I could now hear in the distance. Sophia. I ran. My sneakers slapped against the wet concrete, the sound echoing in the vast tomb-like space. I ran toward the small, pale figure tied to the piling. I didn't zigzag. I didn't hide. I ran with a pure, blind rage. If he was going to shoot me, he could do it. But I was not letting him make me cower. Emma Mommy. Her voice was a thin thread in the storm. I reached her. She was bound with thick, wet rope. My hands, slick with Mateo's blood, fumbled with the knots. They were tight. Professional. "It's okay, baby. It's okay, I'm here." My nails tore. The rope wouldn't give. "Hold still." My hands went to my pocket, a reflex from 1,000 shifts, my trauma shears. I always had my shears. The metal was cold. I slid them between the rope and her small wrist and cut. 1, 2, 3. She was free. She launched herself at me, burying her face in my neck, her small body shaking violently. "He's here," she whimpered. "The bad man." "I know. I'm getting you out." I scooped her up. She weighed nothing. I turned and ran back toward the shadow where I had left Mateo. He was slumped over. The jacket I had given him was a soaked, dark rag on the floor beside him. The pool of blood was a lake. "Mateo," I whispered, my voice desperate. "I have her. Mateo." He didn't move. How incredibly touching. The voice slithered out of the darkness. Vincent Morelli stepped into the dim light. He was standing not 20 feet away, immaculate. His silver hair wasn't even wet. He held a heavy, black pistol, aimed directly at my chest. "At Sophia, the nurse plays house," he sneered, his eyes glittering. "You've gone soft, Mateo," he said to the unmoving form on the ground. "First the trafficking routes, now this. A nurse, a cop's daughter." "You," I breathed, shielding Sophia with my body. "Me," he agreed. He took a slow step closer. "You think you know who you're holding, little nurse. You think she's his—" He laughed, a dry, cold sound. "He thinks she is. He thinks he's a hero. He staged a rescue 6 years ago. Busted up one of my operations. The one your father was sniffing around. He came in like a righteous king, saving the children." He gestured at Sophia. "He didn't rescue her. He stole her. From me." My blood turned to ice. "What are you talking about?" "She wasn't cargo. Emma. She was my ward, my special project. The others were just product. But her, I was raising her myself. I've spent 6 years looking for her. 6 years planning to take back what he stole from me. My business, my position, and my daughter." The word daughter coming from his mouth was a violation. He was the foster father, the man who was grooming her. The monster my father died trying to stop. I looked down. Mateo's hand was open, palm up. His sidearm, the one he'd had tucked in his waistband, had fallen out. It was lying inches from his fingers, inches from my feet. Vincent was monologuing. He was savoring this. He thought he had won. He thought Mateo was gone and I was helpless. "Give her to me, Emma," he said, holding out his free hand. "The game is over." My heart was a fist, trying to punch its way out of my chest. My hand, hidden by Sophia's body, started to shake. "I am a nurse. I took an oath. Do no harm. I save lives. I do not take them." But this man, he was not a patient. He was a disease. I could feel the cold steel of the gun barrel against the concrete as I slowly bent my knees, as if to set Sophia down. My fingers brushed the grip. "She is not your daughter," I screamed, my voice raw. Sophia, who had been hiding her face, turned. She looked at Vincent. Her small face was streaked with tears and grime. She didn't look scared. She looked furious. "You're the monster," she whispered. Then she looked at me, her small world collapsing, and she wailed. It wasn't a word. It was a sound of pure, elemental grief. A child who had lost everything. "Mommy." It broke the spell. Vincent flinched, his eyes, for a single, fatal second, left me. He looked at the girl who had so utterly rejected him. He never saw Mateo move. He wasn't unconscious. He was playing possum. With a roar that was pure, primal rage, Mateo lunged. He didn't go for his own gun. He went for Vincent's. He exploded off the ground, a blur of black and red, and grabbed Vincent's wrist with both hands, shoving the gun skyward. A shot exploded, deafening, blowing a chunk of concrete from the ceiling. I threw myself backward, pulling Sophia under me, shielding her head. I heard the struggle, grunts, the thud of fists on a body. "You traitor," Vincent snarled. Then another shot. It was different, muffled, final. The sounds of the struggle stopped. All I could hear was the storm and the rising scream of sirens. I pushed myself up, my ears ringing. Vincent Morelli was on his back, his eyes wide and vacant. Mateo was collapsed on top of him. He had wrested the gun from Vincent's hand and, with his last ounce of strength, had ended it. "Stay here. Close your eyes. Count to 10. I whispered to Sophia, shoving her behind a stack of crates. I ran to Mateo. I rolled him off the body. His eyes were open, but he wasn't seeing me. "Mateo." I tore at his shirt. The new wound was high in the shoulder, but the one in his abdomen, no, stay with me. I pressed both my hands onto the wound, trying to pack it, trying to will the blood to stop. He gasped, his eyes finding mine. "Emma." "I'm here, it's over. You're okay." "No." He grabbed my wrist. His grip was ice cold but impossibly strong. "Sirens. They're here. You have to go. Take her. Run." "I'm not leaving you." "They'll take you," he wheezed. "Accomplice. They'll take her. Social services. Foster care. She won't survive it. Please, Emma, protect her. That's all." He was a Don. He was a killer. He was the man who had destroyed my life, and he was using his last breath to beg me to save myself and to save his daughter. I looked at his face, gray with imminent death, and I saw the man who had patiently read The Very Hungry Caterpillar 6 times in a row, the man who had a line he would not cross. I put my free hand over his. "No, I'm not running." He tried to protest. "I am not running," I said, my voice hard as steel. "You have to pay for what you did, for my father, for all of it. But I will not let you die alone. If you have to pay, I will be right here. I will stand in that courtroom, and I will be the one to tell them that you still have humanity." He stared at me, a look of profound, agonizing confusion. He didn't deserve my help. He didn't deserve forgiveness. But I wasn't doing it for him. I was doing it for me. For Sophia. The huge warehouse door screeched open. Blinding white and blue lights flooded the space. NYPD hands in the air, hands where I can see them. Dozens of cops in heavy tactical vests swarmed in, their rifles pointed at me, at the man dying under my hands. I didn't move. I kept my hands on the wound, covered in his blood. "Get off him! Get away from him! Lady!" one shouted, aiming his rifle at my head. "I'm a nurse," I screamed, my voice cracking. "He's bleeding out. He's got a gunshot wound to the abdomen. I need a trauma kit now." "He's the shooter." "No," I shrieked. "He's not. He is." I pointed to Vincent's body. "That's Vincent Morelli. He's the one who kidnapped the child. He shot him. He's the one you want. Check his office, a warehouse Red Hook. There are files. He's the one who killed Detective Tom Collins 10 years ago. It's all in the files. The name Tom Collins made an older detective at the front stop cold. "Get EMS in here," he yelled. "Now, and cuff the one on the floor, the live one, gently." They pulled me away, hands rough. "The girl," I gasped. "There's a little girl, she's behind the crates, she's Sophia." A female officer ran past me. I saw her lift Sophia, who was pale but unharmed. The last thing I saw before they put me in the back of a squad car was the paramedics, finally, working on Mateo. He was still breathing. At the hospital, my hospital, St. Mercy, they put me in an empty conference room. Agent Torres, the FBI man, found me there 6 hours later. "He's alive," he said, not unkindly. "Out of surgery. He'll make it. And he's under arrest. Racketeering, conspiracy, murder, we've got him. Miss Collins. Thanks to those files, your father, he was a good man. You finished his work." "Sophia," I whispered, my whole body aching. "Where is she?" He sighed. "Protective custody. She's a ward of the state. She'll be placed—" "No." I stood up. The adrenaline was gone, leaving only a hollow exhaustion, but my voice was firm. "You can't. She's 6 years old. She's just seen all of this. She'll be broken by the system." "Miss Collins, you're a material witness. You can't—" "I'm a pediatric nurse, and I am the only person on this planet that little girl trusts. You need my testimony. You need my cooperation. Fine. You'll get it. But you will give me temporary guardianship. Don't punish her for his last name. Let me take care of her." Torres looked at me for a long time. He saw the blood. He saw the determination. He saw, I think, that I was not a woman who would bend. "I'll make some calls," he said. 6 months, 181 days. That's how long it had been since the warehouse, since the storm, since my life ended and this new, strange, suspended one began. I sat on a hard plastic chair that smelled of bleach. The room was beige. The tables were beige. Even the light filtering through the reinforced glass felt beige. Across from me, Sophia, now almost 7, was coloring. She was drawing a house, a blue house, with a yellow sun, and 3 stick figures, 1 big, 1 medium, 1 small. The buzzer sounded. A heavy steel door clicked open. Mateo walked in, flanked by a guard. He wasn't in a suit. He was in a standard issue, federal prison blue jumpsuit. It hung off him. He'd lost at least 20 pounds, and the shadows under his eyes were carved in. But the eyes themselves, they were the same. Intense, assessing, and, when they landed on Sophia, achingly soft. "Hi, Daddy," Sophia whispered. She didn't run to him. We'd been through this routine twice a month for 6 months. She knew she couldn't. "Hi, cara mia." He sat down, placing his hands flat on the table. The guard stood 10 feet away, unmoving. "I made this for you," she said, pushing the drawing across the table. He looked at it. The blue house. The 3 figures. He traced the medium-sized one, me, with his finger. "It's beautiful. Sophia." His voice was rough. We sat there for our allotted 60 minutes. We talked about her new school, the one I'd enrolled her in under a different name. We talked about the therapist she was seeing, the one who was helping her with the nightmares. We didn't talk about the warehouse. We didn't talk about Vincent. We didn't talk about the 20-year sentence he was serving. The newspapers had had a field day, the Don who did good. They painted him as a dark hero, the mob boss who, in a fit of righteous anger, had single-handedly dismantled the largest human trafficking ring on the East Coast. He had given the feds Vincent, and in doing so, had inadvertently saved his own skin from a life sentence. He was a complicated monster. The public loved him. I, on the other hand, was a pariah. St. Mercy had placed me on indefinite administrative leave. A certified letter had arrived at my apartment. Your association compromised the safety public trust. It was a polite way of firing me. My colleagues, the ones I had shared lunches and holiday shifts with, stopped returning my calls. My roommate, Katie, had moved out. She loved me, she said. But the single-marked police car that sat outside our building for a month was too much. I was living off the money Mateo had insisted I take, the salary for my time as Sophia's caretaker. I had put it all into a trust for her, but I was forced to dip into it for our rent. I was Emma Collins, the nurse who got in bed with the mob. I had chosen. I had chosen to protect Sophia. I had chosen this new reality over the clean, simple one I'd fought so hard to build. And as I watched Sophia slide her small hand across the table to touch her father's fingers, I knew I hadn't really had a choice at all. The call came 2 weeks later. It was nearly midnight. My phone lit up. Blocked number. Hello? Miss Collins? The voice was dry, familiar. Agent Torres. Agent, what is it, is Sophia? The girl is fine. It's Romano. There was an incident at his facility, a fight in the mess hall. My blood went cold. How bad? He's stable. In the infirmary. A ruptured spleen, 3 broken ribs, and a collapsed lung. The other inmate didn't make it. I sat down on the floor, my hand gripping the phone. It wasn't a fight, was it? A heavy sigh on the other end. No, it was a hit. A guard was paid off. We found the shiv. It was professional. Vincent's crew, I whispered. What's left of it? They're tying up loose ends. Romano is the biggest loose end there is. He'll never survive. Miss Collins. Not for 20 years. He's a dead man walking. Then protect him, I said, my voice rising. We can't, Torres said, his frustration clear. He's not cooperating. He gave us Vincent. He won't give us the rest. He won't give us the structure. He's still protecting his family. He's still a Don, even in a cell. We can't put a non-cooperative asset in protective custody indefinitely. My hands are tied. I was silent. I looked at the little blue house Sophia had drawn, now taped to our refrigerator. 3 stick figures. Miss Collins, are you still there? He told me something once, I said, my voice quiet. At the mansion. He said Vincent's files were just sentiment. He said his real files, the family structure, weren't in the country. He gave me a key, a small, strange key. He said, if something happens to me, this is for Sophia. I thought it was just money. Torres was silent. I know where it is. Agent, I said. I know where the whole kingdom is. The next morning, I was at 26 Federal Plaza. I wasn't a nurse. I wasn't a guardian. I was a player. I put the small silver key on his desk. You want the Romano family, I said. You want the offshore accounts, the political markers, the names of the judges and the senators on his payroll. You want to end this. For good, I can give you all of it. Torres stared at the key. What's the price? Miss Collins. A full conditional pardon. Release. Witness protection. You get the whole empire, but you give me him. You let him be the father he's trying to be. You give him a chance to be the man who saved those kids, not the man who gave an order 10 years ago. You're asking us to release the most powerful Don on the East Coast because his daughter drew you a picture. I'm asking you to make a deal. You get 100 convictions. You get to be the man who toppled the Falcon. All it costs you is one broken man who won't survive another month inside. He looked at me, then at the key. He picked it up. I'll make the calls. They let me see him in the infirmary. It was worse than Torres had said. Mateo was pale, a network of tubes running into his arms. The confident, powerful man was gone. In his place was a man who looked hunted. "Emma," he wheezed, his eyes fluttering open. "You shouldn't be here. They'll see you." "I'm not here to check your stitches. Mateo." I pulled the chair close. "You have to go. Take Sophia. Disappear." "I did something," I said, cutting him off. "I went to Torres." His eyes widened, and for a second, the dawn was back. A spark of cold fury. "You what?" "I gave them the key. Mateo, the one you gave me, the one for Sophia." He looked devastated. He tried to sit up, but a wave of pain sent him back down. "You gave them everything. My father's, my grandfather's, you destroyed it." "No," I said, my voice firm. "I saved you. That everything, that 100 years, is what put you in this bed. It's what got my father killed. It's what almost got Sophia killed. It's a legacy of pain, and it's over." He stared at me, his breathing shallow. "I'm not here to forgive you," I said, the words catching in my throat. The 10-year-old wound was still there, a scar on my soul. "I don't know if I can ever do that. For my father." I took a breath. "But I am here because I believe people can change. I believe the man who, bleeding to death, told me to save his daughter instead of him, is the real one. And that man deserves a chance. The Don doesn't. The Don stays here. But the father gets to go free." He just looked at me, and for the first time since I'd met him, the great Mateo Romano was speechless. 1 week later, a gray, cold dawn. I sat in a black government sedan outside the walls of a federal penitentiary. In the back, Sophia was strapped into her car seat, clutching her bear. The steel gate rolled open. A man walked out. He wasn't in a suit. He wasn't in a jumpsuit. He was in jeans and a dark gray sweater. He carried a single black duffel bag. He looked small against the massive walls. He opened the passenger door and got in. The car was silent for a moment. He didn't look at me. He just breathed. The air of a free man. "Daddy." Sophia's voice was small. He turned. He looked at her. Really looked at her, as if seeing her for the first time. She fumbled with her seatbelt. "I'm stuck." He unbuckled his own, turned, and reached into the back, his hands untangling the strap. She launched herself over the center console and into his lap. She buried her face in his neck, her small arms wrapped tight. "I missed you." Mateo held her. He just held her, his arms shaking, his face buried in her hair. I watched his shoulders heave. Once. Twice. I put the car in gear. I looked in the rearview mirror, at the gray walls, at the city I had called home, at the life that was now gone. Then I looked forward. I stepped on the gas, and we drove away, leaving the Romano name and the Collins name behind us. Just 3 stick figures in a dark car, heading west. 2 years, 730 days since I put a sleeping Sophia in the back seat and drove away from the walls of that federal prison. My name is Emma Hayes now, a name as flat and new as the desert landscape. We live in Phoenix, Arizona. The heat here is a physical weight, but it's a clean heat. It's dry. It bakes the dampness of the New York harbor, the smell of gunpowder and old secrets, right out of your bones. I am the director of the Bright Path Center. It's not a hospital. It's a low, 2-story building painted a soft, calming blue, with a garden out back and windows made of reinforced polycarbonate. It's a place I built from the ground up, a recovery and counseling center for the children the justice system forgets, the children of the incarcerated, the kids left behind, carrying the weight of their parents' last names. Kids like Sophia. The funding was a quiet miracle. When the U.S. government finished dismantling the Romano Empire, the one I had handed them on a silver key, they seized billions. A small fraction, just a few million, was quietly diverted into a federal grant program for community restoration and victims of organized crime. My proposal was the first one accepted. The checks that keep our lights on, the ones that pay my small staff, are signed by the M. Romano Foundation, a ghost's name, a penance. Sophia Hayes is 8 years old. She is tall for her age, all long limbs and endless energy. She still has that dark, intense gaze, but the terror that lived in her eyes for so long is gone. It's been replaced by sass, pure, unfiltered second-grade sass. She argues about bedtime. She's learning to play the guitar and practices the same 3 chords over and over until I want to scream. She is, by every metric I have ever known as a nurse, gloriously, beautifully normal. She still wears the necklace, the golden falcon. It hangs on a new, sturdier chain. For the first year, I couldn't look at it. It was a brand. It was the symbol on the wrist of the man who shot my father. It was the symbol of the organization that had hunted me. Then one night, I found Sophia sitting on her bed, polishing it with a cloth. "Why do you still wear that, sweetie?" I asked, my voice softer than I intended. It represents a lot of bad things." She looked up at me, her gaze steady, older than her 8 years. "No, it doesn't. It's the falcon. Falcons can see everything. They protect the high places." She held it out. "He gave it to me so I would always be safe, so he could always find me. It's not bad. It's my protection." She was right. It wasn't Vincent's symbol of hate. It was Matteo's symbol of devotion, a father's promise. Sometimes, I wear the one he gave me, the one I'd kept in my pocket for 2 years, tucked under my own shirt. And Matteo, he is Matt Hayes. He lives, he's free. He works as a security consultant for the U.S. Marshal Service, the very organization that protects us. He uses his paranoid, tactical, brilliant mind to design secure locations for other families in the program. He uses his past to keep others safe from men like Vincent. He is using the darkness to build a shield. We don't live together. The rules of witness protection are strict. He has a small, sterile apartment about 20 minutes away. He is a shadow in our lives, a constant protective presence. I see him in a dark sedan parked a block away from Sophia's school at pickup time. I'll see him at the grocery store, coincidentally in the next aisle, his eyes scanning the crowd. He is the Overwatch, the man in the darkness. But now, he's guarding us. He gets Sophia every weekend. They go to the park. He tries to teach her baseball, which she finds ridiculous. He helps her with her math homework, which, to her fury, he finds far too easy. He is simply Dad. The Don is gone, buried in a maximum security prison along with the rest of his former life. Matt and I, we are careful. We are 2 people standing on opposite sides of a canyon of trauma, bound by the small, precious bridge that is Sophia. We talk about her grades. We talk about her therapy appointments. We talk about the future. We don't talk about the warehouse. We don't talk about my father. Not yet. Forgiveness is a mountain. We are still learning how to climb. Tonight is the center's first anniversary fundraiser, a small local affair. I'm standing at a wooden podium, my hands shaking so hard the index cards are rattling. I hate public speaking. The room is full of maybe 30 local donors, people who own car dealerships and restaurants. The children who walk through our blue door, I say, my voice trembling. They are the invisible victims. They are so often defined by the choices of their parents. But here, at Bright Path, we believe they have the right to define themselves. I'm losing my place. The words are blurring. The air is too hot. Excuse me. A small, clear voice cuts through the room. I freeze. Sophia. She's in the front row, holding her worn-out teddy bear. She's standing on her chair. Excuse me, Miss Emma, she says again, and I can see the mischievous glint in her eye. The room turns. I can feel the heat in my cheeks. Sophia, honey, sit down. I'm in the middle of... She grins. She knows exactly what she's doing. I just have a question, she announces to the room. Can you be my mom for one day? A few of the donors chuckle. They think it's a cute, precocious kid's question. But for me, the world stops. It's the echo. The words that pulled me into the darkness in a hospital cafeteria 2 years ago. But this time, it's not a plea. It's not a terrified whisper. It's a joke, a statement of fact. She's teasing me. Tears well in my eyes, hot and sudden. I laugh, a real, genuine laugh that feels like it bubbles up from my very soul. I think I can pencil that in, kiddo. Good, she says, plopping back down in her chair. Because you've already been my mom for, let's see, 731 days, I just wanted to make it official. I look up, trying to find my place in my notes, but my eyes drift, as they always do, to the back of the room. He's there. He's not in the shadows. He's standing in the doorway, leaning against the frame. He's wearing a simple, clean-pressed, dark shirt. He's not Matt Hayes, the government consultant. He's not Matteo Romano, the Don. He's just him. He's not watching the exits. He's not scanning the crowd for threats. He's watching me, and he's smiling. A small, genuine, unguarded smile. The kind I've only seen him give to Sophia. There is no wedding ring on my finger. There is no white picket fence. There is no happily ever after, because that's not what real life is. Real life is messy. It's complicated. It's about surviving the warehouse and figuring out day by day what comes next. We are not a fairy tale. We are the 3 stick figures from Sophia's drawing, 3 broken, battered souls, a nurse who lost her father, a Don who lost his empire, and a little girl who was born in the dark. I smile back at him, a real smile across the crowded room. It's a start. I look down at my notes, then back at the small, kind faces of the audience, and as I begin to speak again, the light from the overhead fixture catches the small, golden, falcon necklace hanging just above my heart. It doesn't feel heavy. It doesn't feel like a chain. It just feels warm. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you're listening from, so please drop a comment below and let's share our thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe to Mafia Boss Stories, like this video, and if you enjoyed it, please hit that hype button so more people can hear this story.